Wow, this new Final Fantasy VII Rebirth game looks so cool! Is there anything I should play beforehand to make sure I know what's going on? Well, you should probably play Final Fantasy VII Remake, the game that came before it, but you also probably should check out Crisis Core. It's a prequel that explains a lot of stuff that happens at the end of that game so you don't get confused, but just be prepared, you're probably gonna cry at the end of this game. Pfft, I'm a man, I don't cry! I hate this game. We've all been there, kid. Just let it out. Whenever there's a phenomenal game that countless fans adore, there's bound to be a sequel or side games to expand the story and characters. And why wouldn't you do this as a developer? It's the perfect way to make fans happier. Just kidding, it's all for money. You all know me. I'm a huge RPG fan, and most of my favorite games are turn-based or action RPGs. Aside from Legends of Zelda, my next 5 favorite games of all time are all RPGs, but one that stands above the rest is Final Fantasy VII. I am the pinnacle of a Nintendo fanboy and never even owned a non-Nintendo console until 2020 with the PS4. But guess what game I bought that console for? Final Fantasy VII Remake immediately became one of my favorite games ever and made me love the original even more too. It has everything an RPG should have in my opinion. Great characters, amazing music, fantastic world design, and a bunch of girls with big boobs that defy physics. Makes me a little bit jealous. The story is some of the biggest twists in all of gaming, and there was one that people were clamoring to learn more about. So if you jumped in with the remake, then you were probably very confused at the end of the game when this black-haired guy that looked like Cloud showed up. One of my friends even asked me if he was Cloud and Tifa's son, and that made me have an appropriate reaction. Cloud belongs with Aerith! If you don't want anything spoiled for you, or you haven't played the original Final Fantasy VII, then you definitely should probably click off this video, as there will be some major story spoilers for the events of the main game as well as this game, since this is a prequel and explains a lot of the events of what led up to that game. But before we get to that part of the game, I will warn you so you can skip over any major story spoilers if you really want to avoid it but still want to know about the game mechanics. But also, this game is 17 years old at this point, and FF7 is 27 years old like me, so you've had more than enough time to have played these games. Unless you're like 10 years old, in which case, why the f are you on YouTube to begin with? You need to be 13 to have an account. I'm telling your parents. I think I've rambled on enough here, so let's just dive right in. Today, we're taking a look at Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII. Crisis Core was released on September 13th, 2007 in Japan, and then throughout the first half of 2008 in the rest of the world. It was re-released as a remake called Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion in 2022. The remake and the original follow the exact same story, but Reunion has some improvements to the gameplay, graphics, and some additions to make the story better and relate to the characters even more. So we are going to be playing Reunion, as it's much more accessible since I doubt many people own a PSP to play this game these days. Or you could just be me and play it on an emulator for the first time because I'm a scumbag! Just don't tell anyone. The police have been after me since the first time I admitted it, so I cannot be caught. We gotta be careful here. Police! Put your hands where I can see them! Every time! The game takes place years before the events of Final Fantasy VII. It starts off with an eerily similar scene to FF7 following a train in Midgar. We see a soldier that looks like a black-haired version of Cloud jump down and start running across the train as they are searching for Wutai troops. He uses a sword that's way lamer than the Buster sword and takes out the troops with ease. Wow, he fights just like Cloud. I wonder if there's any connection between these two. He begins walking with some incredible swagger down the Sector 1 train station before dating this game to hell and back by pulling out a flip phone. How many kids do you think played this remastered version and didn't even know what that was? Daddy, why is he talking into a clamshell? Those are the phones we used to have back in the day before smartphones, son. Wow, Dad, you must be so old. Did you ever meet Abraham Lincoln? Yeah, we used to ride our dinosaurs to school together. It's revealed his name is Zack and is speaking with his mentor Angeal about their mission. I will say one thing about the voice acting in this game. I do love how they brought the remake's voice actors back for characters that appear in both FF7 and Crisis Core. But Zack sounded so much more like a Chad in the original and now sounds like a nerd who lifts weights, aka me. A bunch of stormtroopers disguised as troops enter the game and shoot at Zack as he's on the phone, completely missing before he gets permission to let loose by Angeal. Zack gets ready to fight and the prologue begins to teach you how to play. The game is an action RPG with a real-time combat system closer to the remake's fighting style instead of the original FF7. You get to control Zack and move around and attack using your sword, special sword attacks, and magic abilities. The special sword attacks require AP to use, and the magic requires MP, which limits you from just spamming those attacks over and over again. Especially since the jump attack in this game is essentially just an instant win button, and we know I never take the easy way out over here. There are a variety of different abilities and magic you can use by obtaining materia throughout the game. You start with very little variety of different elements and a simple sword attack, but you gain more from chests, completing missions, and doing what any sane person does in an RPG, running to every corner of the map to make sure you don't miss anything and waste an extra 10 hours over the course of the game. Found a penny! Worth it! You can only equip a limited number of materia depending on what equipment you have on, which adds in a level of strategy to know what you should add. Some people might want to focus on AP, while others might want to focus on MP, or maybe you just want to focus on defense and increase your HP. It's entirely up to you on how you want to play, but who am I kidding? Just attach an HP up, MP up, AP up, jump attack, and any lightning attack and you're good to go. Just save you the waste of time of upgrading everything else, so I'll take your thank yous in the form of money, please. Why would you even need to increase your defense when you can just dodge? Get good, kids, and you never have to worry about anything. Once you defeat the troops after about 10 seconds, Zack continues his way until he encounters a behemoth, which is a big tutorial boss to teach you the game's big gimmick. Now, I'm not gonna say I love or hate this gimmick, but the big gimmick for this game is impossible to miss. There's a giant fucking slot machine in the top left corner that dictates every aspect of every fight in the game. Instead of requiring skill, the game requires luck. Son of a bitch! The slot machine constantly spins during every battle and will determine what kind of powers you get from increasing your defense or attack, to making all of your attacks not use MP or AP, to healing you all the way up, and unlocking your limit breaks. Yes, limit breaks are completely luck-based in this game, and you need to get 3 of the same person on the slots in order to use their limit break. As you see early in the game, most of the people on the slot machine are silhouettes, as you haven't met the characters yet, so you can't use their limit breaks. The silhouettes are all characters that you meet throughout your journey and have a connection with Zack. When Zack meets them or has a close or connected relationship with them, his emotions will increase for them and make that character more likely to show up on the DMW wheel, which can be super helpful when you have some characters that have super strong limit breaks, but can also take some of the difficulty away when you're performing a limit break every 15 seconds. That's my biggest issue with the slot machine for the gameplay. The fights are either incredibly easy because you get constantly limit breaks over and over, or it's annoying as shit because your luck sucks and you get nothing ever. And if you've ever seen me in Vegas, you know which side of the coin I land on. Alright, that's 19. Hit me. Are you sure, sir? I mean, you are already at 19. Hit me. 24. I'm so sorry, sir. Hit me. This takes away a huge part of strategy into these fights because half of it is purely chance, which, to be fair, adds an element of surprise that no other game has, which I kind of like, but it also makes the fighting worse than any other in the FF7 franchise. Except Dirge of Cerberus, we don't talk about that game here. But the luck and chance element of getting limit breaks and powers is the best part of this mechanic because there's one thing I haven't mentioned. Just like how images are spinning, there are numbers that spin too, which is what gives you those special powers like no MP or AP being used I mentioned before. And there's one special part of this. If you land on 777s, you will level up, which might seem like a little cool extra way to level up as opposed to the normal level up system with gaining experience points. Except this is the only way to level up in this game. The only way to level up is to get lucky and roll 777s, which means battles don't matter, side quests don't matter, and missions don't matter. Which means this game has entered sticker star bullshit territory. I would be perfectly fine if you still got XP for leveling up and then 777s gave you like double experience, or hell, even just a full level if they just made it rarer to get. But as it is, you could just in theory start a fight and run around for like 4 hours and try to get a ton of levels at the beginning of the game. What the hell are you doing? I'm grinding to level 10! This is my biggest issue with this game because it takes away any incentive to complete random fights because you don't get anything for them. Like in theory, yes, the more fights you do will give you a higher chance to gain levels since you'll spin the wheel more times, but that's all it is, a higher chance, no guarantee. The DMW in theory is cool and a unique idea, but it could have been better if it didn't determine the entirety of every battle. Getting back to the boss that brought up this rant about slot machines, Behemoth is a decently difficult boss to get used to the controls, but overall he's not too bad. Just don't be like me and get the buttons confused with FF7 Remake's controls and waste 5 potions immediately while trying to dodge. Once you defeat it, Zack continues to make his way through the sector before someone holds a sword to his back. Wow, that sword looks pretty long. I wonder who it could be. Kill him with fire! Sephiroth knocks Zack to the ground and breaks his sword. Angeal then comes in and saves Zack with the broken sword. Well, thank God Angeal was here to save us. Now we can team up and defeat Sephiroth. Wait, why is he aborting missions so calmly as Sephiroth just stands there? What in the Matrix bullshit is this? Genuinely surprised me when I first saw this, as I did not expect the entire opening sequence to be a simulated training session for Zack. You were not just getting warmed up, you were about to become a Zack kebab. Shish Kazak? You were going to be dead. Angeal then tells Zack to embrace his dreams and to have honor if he wants to be a hero, as that's his whole dream, is to be a hero like Sephiroth. I wonder if that statement and that sword that he was holding on his back we all know Cloud to have in the OG game will have some relevance later. And that's the end of the prologue and cuts to Zack doing his normal squats. Gotta be honest, I didn't know squats toned your arms that much. Gotta start trying it myself. Zack is getting annoyed from not being sent on missions and just doing trainings, but he learns there's been a huge desertion of soldiers and Angeal brings him in to meet with the director on the situation. We learn of a soldier first class named Genesis who went missing on a trip to Wutai, and with him missing, Angeal recommends Zack for first class and says they'll be going on a mission together to Wutai since Genesis is missing. Oh yeah, never mentioned this, but Zack is currently a second class soldier, so he's not the top rank, but he's alright. Kunsul or Kunsul, I probably shouldn't say the second pronunciation because it sounds a little, weird. He's a fellow soldier, and he teaches you about how the soldier floor of the Shinra building works and all the different things you can do there. There are items you can collect almost every time from the little cubby holes in the briefing room, which usually aren't anything too fancy, but it can be some nice materia, which is good to be free and not have to buy. There's also a training room where you can hone your combat skills, which you're not supposed to be able to enter, but the guard says he really can't stop you. And last but definitely not least, there are missions that you can complete at any save point, and if you know anything about me, you know this is my favorite part of the game. I love wasting time doing side missions that don't mean anything to the rest of the story. It's the best part of an RPG, right next to the countless love triangles. These missions range from defeating 1 enemy, to 2 enemies, to 5 enemies, to even 10 enemies. There's so much variety here! They might always involve fighting enemies, but they have a lot of differences in the areas you complete the missions and how much you might need to do it to explore to find where you need to go. And they give you a lot of different rewards, from some giving you materia, some regular items, some equipment which are some of the strongest in the game, plus even access to extra shops to buy items and materia from. It gives you a really big incentive to complete them all, and the more you complete, the better rewards you get, which makes you just more stronger and stronger. Be prepared to set some time aside though to complete these missions, as there's 300 total missions. It will legitimately double the entire game's time, but the final reward for completing them all is more than worth it. You won't unlock a secret super boss, Minerva. Why is every super boss a woman whose name starts with M that kicks my ass? We have Minerva here, and before this we had Elden Ring with Melania. Stop! I still have PTSD! If you beat Minerva, you will obtain an item called the Heike Soul or Hike Soul. I'm really bad at pronouncing names. It's the best item in the game. It basically makes you immortal and increases every aspect of your stats. Your defense goes up, money, items, and materia earned are doubled, you can get special powers added to your normal attacks, and just essentially makes you a god. But in return, you must suffer. The downside is that you will forever be cursed, which means you cannot use the DMW wheel. I'll take your entire stock. Now I'm about to get into the real meat and potatoes of this game and start the story with Chapter 1, so if you just wanted to hear about the game mechanics and don't want the story spoiled for you, skip to the time below for my final thoughts on the game, or you can just click off now to avoid any spoilers while you're scrolling to the time listed. I don't want to take any responsibility if you see something you didn't want to see. Can't have another lawsuit on my hands. Alright, the jury will take a final statement from the prosecutor here. He spoiled that Zelda is in the new Zelda game! I've heard enough. Death penalty it is. Angeal and Zack begin their mission to Wutai and defeat ninjas along the way before Angeal takes a break to give us an academic lesson on Venora Whites, an apple that he used to steal but still kept his honor despite being a lowly, scummy, evil fucking thief. Great lesson here, but I just have one question. What does defeating Wutai have to do with fruit? The two approach the fortress and Zack ambushes it, defeating enemies in the way. No matter how many they throw at you, they are extremely easy, which makes me really wonder how Wutai has even made this a war. You reach the palace at the end before getting ambushed by a little girl? Huh, a hot-headed girl from Wutai with a bandana on. I wonder if this girl returns in FF7 at all and joins a team and maybe even has an entire DLC about her. Nah. Zack acts like a good man and pretends to get his ass kicked to make her leave before entering and battling 2 beasts protecting the palace from soldiers. Wow, they weren't too bad. Thank goodness there's not a third one. Oh, come on! Angeal luckily comes and saves the day and reminds Zack to never lose his focus. They run into the director, who comes in to personally congratulate them and says Zack may even get the first class if he keeps this up. And he goes right back into his squats to celebrate. What is your problem, Zack? Sephiroth is waiting for the two of them, so they continue to make their way before getting ambushed by ninjas, and the two get separated as Zack protects the director. And then out of nowhere, a weird fireball shows up. Oh fuck, we're in hell now. It turns out to be a summon materia that spawns Ifrit, who is the boss of the chapter. This is the introduction of there being many summons to fight at the end of chapters. They are some of the stronger enemies in the game, and they have their own summon powers they can use, which you can weaken by attacking them as they charge it up. And I'm gonna be honest, it doesn't seem right to see these crazy special attacks that look like they're literally destroying the world do about 1/10 of your health. Here comes my ultimate attack! Ha! Oh man, I think he got some dust on me. Once you defeat each of these summons in each chapter, they are added to the DMW wheel, and when you spin 3 of them, you can spawn them to perform their special attacks. So it's the game way of letting you summon without needing to equip the materia, which I kinda like. Keeps the space open for other things while still giving you the option to summon strong attacks every once in a while. Sephiroth comes in to finish Ifrit and shows Zack that each of the ninjas they've been fighting have been copies of Genesis. And Angeal has apparently deserted too. A lot of information just thrown on us by the video game equivalent of Darth Vader, but I'm just supposed to believe him? Yeah, with that sword, I'd believe him too. We cut back to Shinra HQ and god damn it, Zack, what's with all the squats? Don't you have any other hobbies like knitting or something? Zack is called to take a mission to Angeal's home in Benora Village with Song of the Turks to search for him, where they end up running into more Genesis copies. Still want to know how he did this, as I'd love to have an army for myself. Then I could finally put out more than 5 videos a year. Who am I kidding? We'd all just procrastinate together and get even less done. Zack meets Angeal's mother, who tells him he went off somewhere but left his sword, which was made by his father as a gift when he joined Shinra. Song and Zack find an empty warehouse and enter to try to find Angeal, but find Genesis reciting some weird Shakespeare-X play. How is the main antagonist for this game a fucking nerd? Genesis goes to attack Zack, but Angeal comes and protects Zack before ending up walking away with Genesis. Kinda giving me mixed signals here, Angeal. Would prefer you to just tell me what you're thinking. Zack and Song leave before randomly having to slice missiles with our sword. Such a weird and random minigame, especially since this never comes back in the entire game, but I'll take any excuse to earn an extra trophy. Damn it! Zack comes back and finds Angeal's mother has been killed by him and punches Angeal. Genesis then comes in and says some weird cryptic shit as he normally does before spawning another summon to fight. You defeat Bahamut, who is a little bit harder than Ifrit, before Genesis says some more cryptic shit and then he grows a black wing and flies away. I have just one question. What the hell is going on? Zack starts to question exactly what honor Angeal is talking about with his sword and what he's doing leaving Shinra. The war with Wutai is officially called over after the deserters leave, and Zack is given his promotion to first class. Oh man, I can't wait to see what my first mission as a first class soldier is! Sephiroth and him are ordered to go and find and kill Genesis and Angeal. Oh! Shinra HQ is then attacked, and Zack and Sephiroth defeat them before learning that a former Shinra doctor, Hollander, is helping Genesis due to him having a vendetta against the company from not getting a promotion. This is like not being given a raise and then deciding to bomb your work building. I kinda get it. Zack heads out and runs into the Turks, including Cisne, who's the only one who's not an asshole, and Zack protects her from a Genesis clone. Sephiroth calls Zack to come to the Sector 5 reactor to find the two, where Sephiroth gives him a backstory about how the 3 of them were all close friends, all bonding over that weird play story that Genesis was obsessed with. Why is every character in this game a weird theater geek? No wonder they're the enemy. This scene is really cool to watch them fighting, except the scene just goes on and on forever, and then we find out it was just a training simulation again. What is even the point of the scene before the fight then? But it does give a nice backstory to show their friendship and how they all wanted to be stronger and the best. Sephiroth and Zack find some notes about Project G, which was a Shinra experiment to create the perfect soldier using the cells of an ancient when the baby was a fetus, and this is how Angeal and Genesis were created. But the experiment wasn't perfect, and now their bodies are degrading, which is why they need Hollander's help. Hollander runs away as Zack chases him before Angeal stops and reveals he has a wing just like Genesis and he has become a monster. Zack tries to knock some sense into him to say he's not a monster, but Angeal attacks Zack and he falls through the ground. Man, this scene seems eerily similar to a part in Final Fantasy VII. I wonder where we'll end up.
Hello?
My queen! It's a well-known fact that every hole in the upper plate leads to this church. Zack meets Aerith and the two hit it off almost immediately, and he asks her on a date. Respect the hell out of the bluntness on his part. He gives Aerith the idea to sell her flowers to help make Midgar more beautiful and make some extra money for herself. Aerith agrees and wants to help Zack make his way back to the upper plate, but some snotty little brat steals his wallet. I'm gonna teach that little kid a lesson. I just want to talk to him. I just want to talk to him. I just want to talk to him. Aerith helps Zack recover his wallet, and the two continue to talk before she reveals that she's scared of soldiers and thinks there's monsters. Zack, though, uses his eyes and charm to help her realize that he's not scary and he's sweet. I hope they get to spend a long life together. They're totally soulmates. Zack gets a call to Shinra HQ and fights some Genesis clones before running into Angeal, who says he's confused about everything that's going on, but he must protect his honor. Just like when you killed your mother, right? Zack agrees to help Angeal, who flies them to the tower where they fight more clones, protect Hojo, who's definitely a good guy, and another summon at the top of the tower. Just another day's work in this world. Zack and Song head off to Modeoheim after Genesis and Hollander, but they get into a little oopsie crash, so they have to travel on foot. At least we got this cool troop with us who knows the country landscape like us since he's from Nibelheim and we're...
Me? Gungaga.
I wonder who he is. Holy shit, it's Aerith sloppy seconds. I love this reveal of Cloud being a troop with Shinra, as his relationship with Zack is one of my favorite parts in this game as it grows the more they interact. Zack sneaks into the factory nearby and fights Genesis, who continues to say cryptic stuff even while in severe pain. He jumps off the ledge and I'm sure he must be dead, and that's the end of the story. Zack continues to look for Hollander and he runs into him and Angeal talking. Hollander reveals Project G was named after his mother, Jillian, who was implanted with the cells. Angeal accepts that he's truly a monster and becomes a giant beast that Zack must kill to put him out of his misery. Angeal thanks Zack for finally ending his life as a monster and passes a sword onto him to remind him to always protect his honor. Zack is then seen crying, which real men do. Don't be ashamed if you cry. Aerith comes and hugs him to comfort them, and gosh, they're just so cute together. I hope nothing bad happens to either of them. Zack now has grown his hair out and gives a speech to the new recruits telling them to embrace their dreams and whatever happens, protect their soldier honor. Great speech, Zack. I wonder if that'll ever come back at any point.
Alright, I'm pretty sure you get the idea.
We then have a time skip showing Zack is having doubts about working for Shinra and what his honor really is and what he really has to fight for, before being jump scared by his abs. No wonder Cisne is always following him around. Cisne tells Zack about Aerith being an ancient, which is very important to FF7, but honestly doesn't really play a role in this game. You then get ambushed by Genesis copies and we fight them with an umbrella, which just, why can't this be an unlockable sword for the whole game? Zack gets sent on a mission to search for Hollander since the copies are still being created, but he manages to escape and they learn that the device he was using copies for was likely stolen by Genesis. And then Genesis appears to say more poetry bullshit. Just go away. Finally, we get to spend some more time with Aerith and help her bail a wagon to carry her flowers around to sell to people. You need to search around the slums and the upper plate to find what's needed to build the wagon before he and Aerith build it, and she gives him a list of other wishes she has. But of course, we get interrupted because Sephiroth has a mission to tell Zack about, but before we leave, we gotta go back and see Aerith to help her sell some flowers. We tell Aerith we will be back as soon as the mission is done, which I'm sure isn't the last time they will ever see each other. Zack meets up with Cloud and Sephiroth to head out for their mission, which Sephiroth tells them is in Nibelheim. It's a good thing there wasn't just a demo for Rebirth that recently came out that spoiled everything that's about to happen here. Oh, the group heads out to Nibelheim where we meet Cowgirl Tifa, who helps lead us up to the Mako reactor. Sephiroth tells Zack that all the monsters there were created by experiments the same way Genesis and Angeal were, and Sephiroth begins to realize he might have been created the same way. Genesis shows up and tells Sephiroth the truth that he is the perfect soldier created by injecting Jenova cells into a fetus to infuse the child with its powers. Sephiroth believed Jenova was his mother that he had never met, but she's really a celestial being from space that crash landed onto the planet thousands of years ago and was believed to be an ancient. However, she was really what wiped out the ancients. Genesis wants to use Sephiroth's cells to stop his degrading as his cells are perfect, but Sephiroth refuses and heads to Shinra Manor to read some books where he learns everything that Genesis told him was the truth.
Did you understand any of that? Because if you didn't, I don't blame you, and you'd probably have the same reaction as Sephiroth.
Sephiroth does what any rational person would do after finding all this out and goes down to the village and sets it on fire and kills everyone.
You do it too, don't judge him!
We get the most iconic shot in Final Fantasy history though here, and then we follow him and fight him at the Mako reactor. Although it pisses me off that it doesn't play One Winged Angel in the first phase. There it is. Can't fight him without the opera in the background. Sephiroth knocks Zack down, which makes Cloud take his sword and stabs Sephiroth before he comes back and impales Cloud. But somehow Cloud lifts Sephiroth up into the air and throws him against the wall to kill him. Maybe the most insane way to kill someone in any game ever. Zack and Cloud are both severely injured and get grabbed by Hojo and his scientists who begin experimenting on them. Zack wakes up and breaks them out of their tubes to try to escape. They find out they were exposed to Jenova cells and Cloud has Mako poisoning, which is killing him. Zack takes Cloud with him to find Hollander, who they do find and defeat, but then they run into a copy of Angeal, who turns out to be the director Lazard.
Again, what the f is happening in this game?
We again get Zack reminding us that he wants to be a hero, which he definitely is becoming, and he'll get there eventually, I'm sure. Zack chases Genesis and fights one final battle with him using the power of the planet and the lifestream, but that's not enough for our hero Zack. This fight for sure looks like the hardest in the game, but maybe I'm lucky since this was pretty dang easy for me. It just took a lot of time since I barely had any MP for magic attacks. Probably as long as like the previous 3 bosses combined. But then Genesis comes to fight you one-on-one, which is way easier than the previous phase, and I would have probably switched the two for difficulty purposes, but what do I know? I'm not a game developer. I know nothing about making weird theater kids final bosses, so who would take my ideas seriously? Genesis is defeated and Zack sees an Angeal copy beast that came to him and Aerith in the church carrying a letter. The letter is from Aerith saying it's been 4 years since they last saw each other, and Zack vows to get back to Midgar to see her before it's too late, and he's gonna bring Cloud with him. Although, couldn't you have told Cloud this like 2 seconds earlier before picking him up so you didn't have to talk directly into his ass? Then we see 2 soldiers come and grab Genesis, who are pretty clearly white Weiss and Nero from the Yuffie DLC of Remake, and definitely no other games ever in this series. Zack and Cloud make their way towards Midgard while being chased by Shinra, and just before they reach the city, Zack hides Cloud away while he faces the army by himself. Zack grabs his Buster Sword and repeats what he said to the recruits when he first got the sword, repeating Angeal's words. And now we have to fight all of these troops while extremely sad music plays in the background. Luckily, I've got tons of health and healing items. I'll take them all down no matter how many they send at me. Why is the DMW showing me memories of all the people we met on this journey? Wait, why is the screen going black? What is going on? We have to watch as Zack gets killed by these troops as his memories slowly fade away, and his final memories are of Aerith showing she's the most important person to him. The final sequence where you're injured and can barely swing your sword while being shot by 3 troops is one of those moments you never forget. It makes you feel helpless as you can't stop Zack from dying. And then we see Aerith feel Zack dying since she's an ancient connected to the planet, with a beautiful transition from her to Zack's eyes as he lays bloody in the rain. Cloud crawls to him and Zack says he's gonna live for them both and be his living legacy by passing his sword off to him the way Angel did to Zack. Cloud accepts and screams before copyrighted music that I can't play begins. Gotta love the cinematic endings that take away all ad revenue. Cloud says he'll never forget before immediately forgetting and drags the sword to Midgar while Zack is lifted into heaven by Angel. His final words asking if he became a hero, the only thing he wanted in life.
No shit, you're a hero, Zack. I cried because of you.
The credits then end with a recreation of the opening shot from Final Fantasy VII and Cloud on the train heading to the bombing mission.
My name is Cloud. Soldier. First class.
You're a liar!
This is one of the biggest emotional roller coasters of any game you will ever play, and that's saying a lot coming from me. I've played Glover.
Crisis Core helps tie everything together from FF7 and completes the story of Zack and Aerith that we are left with so many questions from the original game. The characters are some of the best in any RPG out there and make you really connect with them, and seeing returning characters from FF7 is amazing, even if they have smaller roles like Tifa. I just really have a problem with Genesis and the theater dork self, but I can look past him and the rest of the game being damn near perfection. Except for the damn slot machine. All in all, this is a must-play game if you're a fan of Final Fantasy VII, and I would highly recommend playing it before Rebirth. Sorry I didn't give you more of a heads up before Rebirth comes out in like 2-3 days, or basically right now, but it's going to be important to play this, I'm sure. Otherwise, why would Zack make an appearance in the game? They want you to know who he is, and I'm so excited to see how this and Aerith stories play out. Or the same thing might just happen again and I'll be traumatized for another 27 years.
Hey, I have a quick question for you. Go ahead, what is it? Now that you've played all of the Final Fantasy VII games, I just want to ask your opinion. What do you think is the best of all of them? Well, I do love games that completely destroy the basis of its predecessors and change everything and piss off the fans, so I gotta definitely go with Dirge of Cerberus. Boys, take aim! Boy, oh boy, the price of shitty opinions is steep.